the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
In this class, he might be a linebacker, he might be a safety. Like, who in this class that you think Tennessee is in play for, or is currently has committed, that is most likely to be able to make that move to safety because of just depth questions at Tennessee?
Yeah, I look at both Dylan Lewis and Tyler Redmond. To me, the two commitments. I think both of those guys have frames that, depending, again, you just don't know how these guys are going to develop once they get into college. But Tyler Redmond, especially, he's a big framed kid,
Yeah.
and look at him. I certainly wonder if he could grow into a safety or eventually kind of gravitate that way, depending on what Tennessee needs. But they've got some options there, and I think that's one of the reasons they can, like you said, focus a little bit more on the cornerback position in some ways. They've been trying to get two safeties in this class. They definitely want two safeties, and Sidney Walton obviously is one that projects as a safety, I think, right now. Shady Hayward, we'll see how things go there. I think that's clearly the remaining priority for Tennessee at the safety position. But one of the reasons you maybe don't see 5-6 names on that board right now is they do have some options there if they needed to just sort of figure it out and bring in 5 or 6 total DBs, but not necessarily 2 surefire safeties. They've got some options there down the road, and also some guys on the current roster that they think, obviously Boo Carter's a star right now, but he could play safety in a pinch. So the numbers aren't bad there, and they've got enough versatility on the roster and in the current class that I think they would be okay. You alluded to Shady Hayward even potentially being a guy who could grow into linebacker. That's probably a down the road situation, but the fact that he is already, maybe a hair over 200 pounds does make you wonder what his future position will be. But I think he's an athletic enough guy that he could definitely stay at safety. I think some people maybe already have him in their minds penciled into linebacker in the future. I wouldn't assume that, but I do think that's a real possibility. So yeah, it's an interesting class from that standpoint, but they're still in on Timothy Merritt, the Miami commitment. They're still trying to get a second safety in this class. So I don't think people should assume that, Tyler Redmond or Dylan Lewis is destined for safety in the future because they might not get a second safety. They're still trying to get that second safety. We'll just kind of see where it ends up in a few weeks.
Is Merritt in this weekend or next weekend?
He's in this weekend, and that's a really interesting visit because he's 5 days removed from the Miami commitment. He's back in Knoxville, and that's not one that was a sure thing to happen this week. It was kind of off and on early in the week. So that's an interesting visit, one of many we're certainly watching closely this weekend.
Do you think they take, if Merritt wants in the boat and Hayward wants in the boat, do they take them both, or is this a one final spot here? What do you think they would do?
Well, they're not turning away Shady Hayward. I think it would depend on, as with a lot of these things, we get a lot of questions. Would this guy be a take? Sometimes that's a spur of the moment decision a little bit, because you really have to decide kind of on the timing and how things are looking at that particular time. But with a guy like Hayward, he's not a guy Tennessee's going to turn away. So if Merritt for some reason wanted to flip this weekend, and you would think that's a situation that might take a little bit longer to play out since he did just commit to Miami last weekend. But if he did want in, that'd be an interesting dilemma for them. I don't think they want to pass on Shady Hayward by any stretch of the imagination. So at the same time, they like Timothy Merritt. So that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. But I think, the goal's been 2 safeties. They're still focused on that, not looking to load up on that position. But yeah, that'd be an interesting dilemma. And I'm honestly not totally sure what they would do this weekend if that opportunity presented itself.
Interesting. Who do you think is the most important player for Tennessee to close with this weekend? If you had to, because we're going to get one. Like the fact that you got Jayden Loftin last week, like Tennessee's going to get one out of this weekend at the very least, probably multiples. But when you look at who's coming in, who do you think is the most important that Tennessee shows well and just really finishes this thing up? Because, I mean, it's commitment season. Who is the most important in this class?
Well, I will say, first of all, on the timing of all that, we'll see. But just because Tennessee got Jayden Loftin coming off that visit last weekend doesn't mean it's necessarily going to play out that way with this group. I think some of these guys already have their commitment dates or timelines in mind. So a lot of these guys might wait a couple weeks to make
this isn't a push it staff. This isn't like a Clemson or a Georgia. They're not gonna be like, oh, your spot, this is it. Like it's you're in the boat or sayonara.
And to your point, you do have to close either way, regardless of whether they're announcing in a couple weeks or next.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.